this meeting to order. Those in attendance, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome all of our friends and neighbors and colleagues and joining us in this regularly scheduled February 3rd, 2020 City Council meeting. As you come in, there'll be your sign-in sheet on the desk over there. If you're a guest with us tonight, please sign your name. City Clerk Price, may I please have a roll call vote?
Councilperson Bell.
Here.
Briner.
Here.
Beer.
Here.
Morrissey.
Here.
Sharp.
Here.
Stuchel.
Here.
Pratt.
Here.
Sizer.
Here.
And Mayor Stockford.
Here.
All present.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move into approval of agenda. Does the city manager or any council members have any changes they'd like to see made to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Bell to approve the agenda as written. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilperson Briner.
Yes.
Beer. Yes. Morrissey.
Yes.
Sharp.
Yes.
Stuchel.
Yes.
Pratt.
Yes.
Sizer.
Yes.
Mayor Stockford.
Yes.
And Councilperson Bell.
Yes.
All approved.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move on to public comment on agenda items only. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your trips to one to the podium. Please limit your comment to 5 minutes. Please make sure that if you're going to take advantage of this period of public comment, that it's something that has a direct tie to something that's present on the agenda. And please understand, per our council rules, while somebody is at the podium, there will be no back and forth between council and the person at the podium or questions answered directly at that time. Podium's now open.
Jack McLean. I got a question about the water in the basements on Ripon Street by where they went under the road with the culvert. I know there's 3 or 4 houses right there that never had water in their basements, and now they're having it. I don't know, the rumor is it that there was a drain tile in there that was actually feeding into the wastewater plant, and it got taken out, so all that water that was going in through the wastewater plant no longer goes to the wastewater plant. It's coming up above ground now in that area, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any more public comment?
Penny Swan, Ward 4. I'm speaking on Mayor Stockford's council goals for the next year. Some of the ideas I have are the leaf issue, that bagging them isn't working. The streets, obviously, that's always an issue. That was an issue when I was going around door-to-door campaigning. I'd like to see an additional firefighter in there, and public safety is always a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Any more public comment on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll close the podium. We'll move into the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we've got approval of bills, city claims January 9, city claims January 23, BPU claims January 9, BPU claims January 23. Payroll, January 9, payroll January 23. K-Freeze, final pay, January 9. Sick payout, January 13. Personal payout, January 15. City Council minutes of January 20. EDC, Manufacturing and Technology Park minutes of July 18th, 2019. Planning Commission minutes of December 17. TIFA minutes of November 19. TIFA Targeted Development minutes of January 14. Joint Work Session minutes of January 25. And the Quarterly Investment Report. Is there any discussion on any items on the consent agenda? Councilman Morrissey.
Yes, I'd like to call council's attention to consent agenda item G, joint work session minutes, January 25th, 2020. There are 4 goals listed. The second goal is stated as increase walkability and safety within the city. This is inaccurate. At the meeting, many participants cited infrastructure repair and reconstruction as a goal. The facilitator initially summarized these comments with the phrase, "improve walkability in the downtown." I intervened to say that we wanted improved walkability throughout the city, not only in the downtown. Another participant mentioned streets in addition to sidewalks, at which point I recommended the language drivability and walkability. The facilitator duly wrote this amendment on the board. He also remarked that if street reconstruction and repavement were not listed as a goal, then I quote, "screw the streets." The residents of Ward 2 didn't send me here to screw the streets. That mission had already been accomplished. They sent me here to help get them fixed. It's worth noticing that repair and reconstruction of trunk line and residential streets is an integral part of economic development. Companies are reluctant to move into areas where infrastructure is in poor condition, as Detroit has demonstrated. Further, economic development requires not only the relocation of businesses to Hillsdale, but also the relocation of people. If we are to increase the population of middle-class folks in the city, individuals who enhance the tax base and not incidentally buy goods and services from local businesses, we will need to offer traversable streets and sidewalks. What is more, real estate transactions are themselves an important part of any local economy. At the meeting, the mayor pointed out that the city council has set public safety, infrastructure repair and reconstruction, along with economic development, as the city's top goals. I believe that every member of this council and all council members who have served with me in the 3.5 years that I've been on the council have consistently supported these three goals. I've stood for election twice. Prior to both elections, I canvassed the residents of Ward 2 collecting signatures for my ballot petitions. I asked all those I met to name their top priority for city council. All but one person said roads. During the first of those election cycles, I was quoted accurately in the Hillsdale Daily News as saying that rebuilding our streets and sidewalks will be a generational effort. A generation is 20 years. I stand by that prediction tonight. The residents of Ward 2 gave me my marching orders. Since then, as my colleagues here on the council and the City Hall staff can attest, I've consistently followed through on that mandate. As a council, we've supported street and sidewalk reconstruction with several actions. First, in each of the past 3 years, we voted for a $3 million increase in property taxes to support the streets. Second, council supported the city manager's contract negotiated by the Operations and Government Committee, which I chair. That contract includes a bonus stipulation recommended by my colleague, Councilman Bell, which rewards the city manager for completing a mile of curb-to-curb street pavement each year. At the January 25th joint meeting, this clause was singled out by one participant in a tone that suggested that this was a bad idea. On the contrary, it's one of the best ideas advanced in the city in the past couple of years, and we've seen excellent results that have followed from it. Third, mayor, council, city manager, public works director Hamill and his crew, contractor Brian DuBois and his crew, and above all, the residents of Garden, Vine, Mead, and Ripon streets persevered through many setbacks suffered through these reconstruction projects. 4, we are continuing this year with reconstruction of West Fayette Street from the railroad tracks to Hillsdale Street. We will also continue with chip and fog sealing with other roads throughout the city. 5, just days before the joint planning work session, council hired a full-time engineer. We did this in part to be able to anticipate future structural issues, such as the ones we faced and eventually solved on Ripon Avenue. We didn't hire the engineer merely to tend the sidewalks, but to oversee all of our much-needed infrastructure projects as we move ahead in our efforts to rebuild this town. Given these long-standing policies of council, I move that the minutes of the joint planning work session be amended to read 2, increase drivability and walkability and safety within the city. I further request that copies of this memo be sent to the Planning Commission, the EDC, and the Tifa Board and included in our next City Council meeting packet. There should be absolutely no doubt about the council's intentions for the city master plan on this important matter. If anyone has any questions, wishes me to elaborate or clarify what I just said, I would be more than happy to address it.
Thank you, Councilman Morrissey. That was well said. So is that a motion?
I'd second the motion.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Bell, to remove the joint work session minutes of January 25th, 2020, amend them to include, was that increased drivability
Yes.
and walkability within the city?
One word.
No hyphens.
Okay. Amend them to include that language and return them to the packet in the next agenda.
So I think part of the motion was to include your memo in the next
Yes.
agenda, correct? And to communicate them to the, okay. Communicate them to Tifa,
Tifa,
EDC.
EDC, and Planning Commission.
Okay.
All right, so let's try this again. Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Bell, to remove joint work session minutes of January 25th, 2020 from the current consent agenda, amend them.
I think just to amend those.
Okay, let's just amend them to include the sentence, replace the sentence, increase walkability and safety within the city to be increased drivability and walkability within the city, and to include Councilman Morrissey's statement
Next week packet.
in the next packet.
And communicate them to.
And communicate them to Planning Commission, Tifa, and the Economic Development Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good.
That make any sense, Katie?
Yeah, she's been
Interrupting every third
hanging
word.
around here
Sorry,
long
sorry.
enough, so. Okay, now we need any more discussion on the consent agenda before we move on?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Bell, seconded by Councilman Morrissey, to approve the consent agenda as amended. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Veer,
Yes.
Morrissey,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Stuchel,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Sizer,
Yes.
Mayor Stockford,
Yes.
Councilperson Bell,
Yes.
and Briner.
Yes.
All approved.
Thank you, Katie. We will move on to communications petitions. Item A, we've got a Hillsdale Community Library newsletter that's posted new hours Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and Sunday closed. Second item is the spring newsletter, which should be available to all residents and BPU customers in their bill. Some cool stuff in there. And yet another letter from Comcast. Any discussion on any of these items, gentlemen and ladies? Seeing none, we'll move. There's no introduction, adoption of ordinance, public hearing, so we'll move to old business. First item is street projects verbal update. Jake?
Good evening. Don't have a lot tonight, but I just wanted to bring you up to speed on the Fayette project. All of the plumbing, the manhole structures, the roadway, all those things we've been given the green light on in the MDOT system. The only thing we're really waiting on is a green light on the hydraulic information for the box culvert over the river. Eagle's looking at that stuff pretty close, as they always do, so it's no surprise, and it's nothing we didn't expect. So we may have to provide them a little more hydraulic information possibly. But we're on track still for the April 3rd letting through the MDOT system.
Any questions? Councilman Sharp?
What's going on in the corner of Spring and Ripon Street? I see some barricades up there on the newly paved, fixed section. What happened?
A little bit of warranty work. We had a contractor on the concrete around the valve boxes. A couple of them were broken and had to be dug down a couple of feet before they put it in, and they didn't get good enough compaction on 2 or 3 of them, so I guess it'd be 4 locations around. There's a couple spots over here also on the Garden Mead Vine side. They're redoing it. It's no cost. It's warranty. We're just
Okay.
staying on top of it and make sure they get it done right away. Maybe a
Also,
day or 2.
the water in the basements, do you know anything of that?
The only thing I know anything about is 99 Ripon has water in the basement. I used to live at 99 Ripon. It had water in the basement long before this project. It would have been 2005, so that's nothing new. Nobody has made me aware of any pipes that used to be anywhere or any additional water in the basement. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I would think I would be the first phone call you'd make if.
I'd be the
if you were having
second, and I
problems.
haven't received any phone calls
So-
yet, so.
It's all news to me. I encourage anybody to give me a call if indeed there's something there that we're not aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for Jake? Anything more for us, Jake?
That's pretty much it for now.
Awesome.
Keep forging away on that project and hopefully get that kicked off to a good start. We will have a meeting with all the residents affected in that area, like we have like we did on the Hallett project. I think that helped tremendously. Again, another lesson learned on the ice grant project.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you, Jake.
thank you.
Okay, we will move to item B, 2020 council goals. Every year we've set goals. The past few years, our goals have been consistent. Street repair, infrastructure repair, public safety funding, economic development, and accountability. I feel like this council's done a really good job of ensuring that those goals were achieved in a number of ways. The residents of Hillsdale saw fit to pass a public safety millage, which allowed us to purchase some fire equipment and also allowed us to plan for the future. As we know, we've been working on the streets. So this year, I'd like to get the conversation started and actually ended. So we've got some clear things set in place. First goal that I've got is street and infrastructure repair. So I think Councilman Morrissey pretty much had the last word on that just a couple minutes ago, but we've made some great progress on the streets in the last couple years, as we all know, and we've also had a couple hiccups, and I'm confident that we've learned from those. Very confident that we've learned from those, and I'm not saying that we won't have more hiccups again in the future, but I'm confident that we won't be making the same mistakes that we made over again. I'm very proud of this council. Very proud of the city administration for helping us tackle this problem, and I'm really proud of the residents for the patience that they've shown us. I think it's really refreshing in today's political climate that's kind of characterized by theatrics and division to see people working together of different stripes to get things done. So we've got to continue down this path. Another thing, as Councilman Morrissey already stated, we just asked the residents to accept another full-time, high-paid salary position for the purpose of doing the streets. So I think it's clear that we've got to stick on this path, at least for the next decade, and I'm sure that we're going to have something to show for it. I know we've got a lot of projects planned again for this year, so I think it goes without saying street repair and infrastructure are part of our goals. The second, Councilman Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Could we add, or maybe just a sub-point to that, would be starting to prepare maintenance plans for those roads that we've done in the last, say, 10 years, going out to state and some other, I know we have maintenance plans in place, but something that we could give the public to say, this is what we're going to do to maintain what we really worked hard to scrimp and save to build.
Sure.
Because I know that lots of municipalities are moving towards, keep your best roads maintained first and do what you can for the worst ones. But it used to be worst first, and now they switch around. So
Absolutely. That's not our policy here. Our street repair, infrastructure repair also includes maintenance, and that was well spoken.
thank you.
The second item I have for our council goals, and City Manager Mackey and I have discussed this, and I know that the Police and Fire Chief, Chief Hefner and Mr. Mackey have had discussions about this as well, is trying to find a way to add another fourth full-time firefighter to the fire department. I know that Councilman Sharp can attest to this as well. Throughout the years, we've had to make a lot of sacrifices, and it seems like the very first place we always go is the fire department, and I guess I understand why, but this fire department's down a couple officers from where it was a few years ago. So we ask a lot of these guys, they're putting in a lot of hours, they're putting in a lot of overtime, and I think sense. We're making so much progress in other places that it's time to buckle down on this. This isn't a luxury item in any way. That's correct, right, Mr. Mackey? I mean, this is definitely something that we need to do. For this,
Well, there definitely is a need, if we're going to continue to operate as we have been, that 3 full-time firemen just cannot do this without, with time off, with scheduling, with training, those things. If we're, again, yes, if we continue to operate the way we are, the 4th firefighter is probably definitely a need, not a want. That doesn't mean that we don't look at how the department's structured in the future. I know Mr. Stuchel has brought up looking at combining or kind of an authority approach in the future. That was one of the first things you had brought up. As we continue to work with like Jonesville Fire Department and with automatic aid and those type things, that might be something we look at in the future, but we're not there yet. So this particular addition would be necessary.
thank you, Mr. Mackey, for clarifying on that. Councilman Bell?
Sorry, I want to also just say on this, we need to make sure as we're doing this that it's not expected that Hillsdale will be able to take more and more and more. In other words, our guys are stretched thin, they're doing a great job, but they're stretched thin, and we're doing this so we can shore up their time and things and the help that they have. I think that if we put this out in an incorrect way, then more calls and things that maybe other emergency services should handle will be transferred to us, because they'll say, oh, they got another person, so now they can handle more. That's probably true, but we don't want to be the dumping ground either. And I know you guys are working on that with some other things, but just in the past couple of years, the amount of calls that we've taken has skyrocketed. So I would hate to see it skyrocket more, so that we're spread to the same thinness when we get a 4th one.
Yeah, I couldn't see it. Couldn't see us taking on many more calls than we are right now. And I don't think adding another firefighter is going to give us the manpower to be able to take more calls. I don't think that's not part of the goal. It's basically recognizing the sacrifices that the fire department's made, and also recognizing that it's not feasible to continue operating in such a way, even with just and I'm speaking out of turn here, but just maybe the sheer amount of overtime that we're paying,
Right.
financially,
Yeah.
speaking. So, and these guys need time off too. I mean, these guys live over there at that fire department. It's more than a job.
Yeah.
It's a job like none of us have, so. The third item, Councilman Zeiser, sorry.
Just with regards to that point, and maybe this is more of a question for the city manager. At a previous meeting, we discussed that perhaps one of the other emergency service agencies might be dumping calls on us, or not being as assertive as they could possibly be in taking calls in this area. So is that something that we're still kind of investigating or dialoguing with them on? I think this was specifically as pertains to medical runs.
We have started, and this is, started occurring a few years back, that we started being more of a first responder, and this has probably started, and Chief could speak more to this probably than I. It had started prior to myself coming on as city manager, but those calls have steadily increased with the
Right.
changes at the federal level with insurance and those type things. And then working with our local providers for ambulance service and those type things, we have picked up a lot of that. We've talked about doing some first responding of our own, if we could make it work and make money at it. But the chief and I are not there at buying into that quite yet. But that being said, as I mentioned, with the fire authority or those type services, that's the only way, if we change the structure of our current organization of the fire department, that's the only way we're gonna get away from needing 4 full-time firemen. And what that would look like, I don't know, because we haven't gone down that road yet, but.
But are we shouldering, in your opinion, an undue burden or portion of the burden? You know, are there things that other agencies might do that they aren't, or
Well, we
is it just
inevitably,
that that's the law, you know, with the insurance
Sure.
changes?
Hillsdale does shoulder some of that burden countywide because we are the county seat. So we do shoulder some of that. The airport, it's used countywide, but we shoulder the complete burden. And some of transportation, we have some of that burden. And, you know, first responding, some of that, that used to be done through private means, and we've started shouldering more of that. So to answer your question, yes, we do pick up where there are gaps. A lot of it is from, you know, trying to take care of our residents.
Right.
You know, we want to make sure they're taken care of to the best of our ability, the fire department, the police department. And when, you know, they recognize a gap, their first response is to step in and try to close that gap and help the residents. But sometimes that puts the extra burden on all the taxpayers of Hillsdale.
Right. Okay.
If you have a specific question, you know, I can have the chief come up, because he's definitely.
I don't know how far into the weeds that I would like to get on it. I just think that it's probably something that we're all looking at as to what proportion of the burden we realistically are assuming and can continue to assume, and what's equitable. I think these are all things that are already going into the mix, into our thinking.
Yeah, and as the mayor had indicated, a lot of this has to do with between the 3rd and 4th firefighter with the quality of life issue. If you burn out your staff who are doing 24-hour shifts because they've been there 48 hours, 2, 3, 4 days in a row, you know, pretty soon they're going to decide that they need to do something else for their own quality of life.
Right.
And so we have a responsibility not only to take care of the residents, but also to take care of the folks who take care of the residents. And that's what we're doing here.
Very good. All right, the third item I have on our list is the homeless situation. So all of a sudden, not a day goes by where I don't have some correspondence from a resident or somebody about the sheer number of homeless people and the interactions that are taking place on a daily basis in our city. As you guys all know, we had the fire just last week, which was pretty big news. It's pretty big news when the Lansing news station comes down here to cover it. So just on a personal level, and I know a lot of you guys know this at the table right here, but and some of the people in the public know it, but just a few weeks ago, I had some a homeless couple try to steal some items from my porch. 10 years ago, I actually, my grandfather took in a homeless man and he shot him in the head and killed him in the middle of the night. So this issue is really, really close to me, and I think it more than 99% of people has had an impact on my life. There's a lot of great people that are really working very hard in the community on it right now, and I've had conversations with a lot of them. I'm not sure if this is a problem that government can solve in itself, but I think it would be good to get a conversation going about solutions, about actual facts, because there's a lot of competing theories going around out there about how this happened and what's actually taken place. So I put out the idea of having a task force, which was like a countywide task force, that the initial steps would be taken here to organize it. And I'd like to ask permission from council for Mr. Mackey and I both to kind of do a joint appointment thing. That would, of course, be approved through council. to start a homeless task force. Talk to people. As soon as I put it out there, I got calls from people that are housing specialists at the Community Action Agency. I got calls from people that are involved in several churches. I got calls from people at Michigan Department of Human Services. Calls from people that served on these sort of task force in other communities, as far away as Seattle. So I think that there's a real interest in this community to try to, I don't know, get our hands around this. We've talked about, different ways that the city government can handle it, maybe on a law enforcement spectrum. I guess the point is, I don't know what we can do about it, but the one thing I do know is people are expecting us to do something about it. So take my charge as mayor very seriously, and I think it wouldn't hurt to put together a group of citizens that are interested in talking about this and talking about what we can do to try to help the issue, soften the issue, and so we can get some real, actual facts to know what's going on, maybe in the form of statistics or. So I have that on the list also as a third item. The fourth item I have, Councilman Bell.
I think it's a good start. You can't really foresee these kinds of things, obviously. But it's a shame that we're having to have a lot of law-abiding residents see things that are going on that haven't been going on for a long time around here, or at least that have been limited to people who, live here or neighbors, things like that. Like you said, there's a lot of rumors going around about all sorts of stuff. I would support it. Just one caveat: no advice from Seattle or San Francisco.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Okay.
That approach is not. That's first of all, that's a big city approach.
No, I'm just.
And I mean, I don't mean to, no, I'm with Matt on that. I mean, the approach that one would take in a Seattle or San Francisco or God forbid a Portland would not be the approach we would take in a small community. And
That's true.
And I also think that what Matt is implying, and rightfully so, is that those cities have, perhaps through their own good intentions, magnified the problem and concentrated the problem. And we don't want to do that either. Well,
I think, I think with the case of some big cities, I would say, have actually have made an impact on the problem. Some big cities have almost eliminated it. So I guess it depends on what your approach. I know that Seattle themselves had, and I know this from talking with a person on a task force from out there, had made panhandling illegal, and it moved a lot of people out of the city. So. And it's strictly a law enforcement perspective of it, but I totally get what you're saying, Bill.
Yeah, I grew up in New York, as some of you may know, and I was born at the very start of the 80s. So effectively, if anybody has seen the movie Joker, that's sort of a documentary about the environment into which I was born. So people in New York at the time would carry what was called mugger money, which, Will is from the area, he might remember this, which was a wad of small bills that you would throw at someone so that when you got attacked, it would distract them. That's how bad it got there. And so the real revolution in New York came when the Giuliani administration came in. And I know that Giuliani is a loaded name now because of his involvement with President Trump, but at the time, he was sort of a centrist Republican mayor, but his philosophy on it was that anybody who's on the street, and the statistics bear this out, people tend to think of, families where dad loses the job. That's probably, according to HUD, the current figure is about 20% of the homeless. Those people are situationally homeless, and they don't tend to be homeless more than a year.
Yeah.
About 80%, 75-80% of the homeless are chronically homeless, typically because they have substance or drug issues. Usually these are co-occurring. And so I'm not saying that we don't want a compassionate approach, but that requires a different solution. So in New York, the revolution was that the attitude became, this is not, someone can't choose to be homeless. If they are on substances or not mentally well, it's not a choice. So we're going to kind of force people into contact with the system. So the famous choice was shelter or jail. The choice is yours, which does not seem compassionate, but it actually did put people in contact with the help that they needed and the people that were equipped to give it. And so now, because of various, you mentioned making panhandling illegal. I think that the current push is to say that that's a First Amendment violation. So there's been in a number of cities tension with that. So in Las Vegas, for instance, they have a lot of the aggressive street panhandlers who dress up like characters, and they try and get people to take pictures with them, and then they say, you owe me a tip. And so they tried to chase those out in the panhandlers, and I think it was a federal court decision came down that was a First Amendment violation. So Vegas's solution was, well, we'll create a free speech area. So they created a little corner where you can do those activities, and then I think that didn't pass muster. So I don't necessarily have any particular solutions, but it's a complex, multifaceted.
Absolutely.
And I worry that if we think about it as one type of problem, it's going to get on top of us before we get on top of it.
Absolutely, I understand. And believe me, there's nobody in this room that hates committee work more than I do. But
What's that, Tin Man?
like I said, I'm not suggesting that we spend any money on it. I'm just suggesting that we get a conversation started, and maybe we get a lot of these people that are already working on the problem all in the same room and see if maybe they can't crack something open. And you're right, it's a complicated issue that, like I said, has had a large effect on my life, and yet I don't have the first clue on what to do about it. So I'm sorry if it seems inappropriate to have that as one of our council goals, but I'll echo what I said earlier. The one thing that I am sure of is when something happens, I'm one of the first people that gets contacted about it, and it's happening on a daily basis, and I don't know what to tell people. So the residents of the city want action. They want to see something happening. So I don't know, start throwing things at the wall and see what sticks. So, Councilman Sharp.
I think you also need to talk to other communities like Adrian, Coldwater, Jackson, find out what they're doing too. I mean, what's their solution and answer to the problem? I have a sister that lives up in Traverse City. They have the homeless up there. They're living up by the old state hospital in the wooded area up there. And twice a year they go up there and they clean out the woods. And they take everything and put it by the road, and trucks come along, pick it up. And that's one of their solutions. They're going to clean them out because there's also been a shooting up there last year. A guy got killed by a homeless man. So the problem isn't just in Hillsdale, but it's getting more noticeable here. We do need to talk to other communities. What do you guys do? What's your solution to it? And find out and work from what they're doing and see if it'll help here also.
Absolutely. I want us to be known as a city of action, and I know you guys all want the same thing too. Councilwoman Pratt?
Was the building that burnt, was that on city property?
It was not on
Okay.
city property. It was on private property, and it was a kind of a makeshift shed. Been out there a long time, very old shed. So it's my understanding that the people did have permission to be out there. So,
Well, there's somebody up behind Kroger's that has a tent.
yeah.
Is that city property?
No, that's not city property. We don't let people camp on city
I didn't
property.
think
So, and that's, I know there was a couple people out in the county that were upset with me because I got on television and said, we don't allow people to camp on city property. Like, maybe that was a little too harsh, but no, we're not gonna let people camp on city property. This city property is owned by the residents of Hillsdale, and I feel like that would be an undue burden upon them to,
Make it a propane fire hazard.
yeah. So, like I said, I asked Mr. Mackey to help me on this because I treasure his advice, and I think that anytime that you can get the mayor and the city manager to work together on something like this, it's a good thing. Plus, you have two heads. So,
I'll be the third.
all right,
like
very
to help.
good. Awesome. Awesome. City manager.
Police chief doesn't know it yet, but he's volunteered for the committee as well.
He's brushing up his resume right now.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yep, when the chief finally decides to leave us and go to Milwaukee and become their police chief, and
He has to wear a cowboy hat if he does that.
oh yeah, David Clark, that's right, good
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
Fourth item I have is leaf collection solutions. We all went through it this last year. Another complicated issue where what we were doing before wasn't working well, and what we replaced it with didn't work very well this year. Councilman Bell?
Don't mean to interrupt. Might we put a time frame on this one? I think we really need to start moving so that we can have something to try by the spring. Whether it's, hiring private contractors or volunteers to help with elderly or something. We have to do
Yeah.
something for this spring's pickup.
Yeah, well, you know what? Who's public safety or public services committee up here?
Greg, Bill, and Matt.
You guys? So,
Public services.
public services?
I was thinking
Yeah.
public safety, yeah.
Yeah, you guys want to call a meeting, get Jake in there and get the conversation going on that. I agree with you. I see this winter, especially since the winter's been mild, so many just piles and piles of leaves in the street. People just, I would say 10% of our residents possibly followed the bagging thing, and the rest of people just rake their leaves to the curb still.
Right.
And
My point is that we thought we had something great, or at least a replaceable solution, and we failed. And that's fine. We make mistakes all the time. But let's make new mistakes and not do the same thing.
yeah, right on.
Again this year. So,
Right on. Very good.
we'll meet this month and talk about something. Talk to Jake a little bit.
But I would request that you also doing a study on with the EPA and everything, what their guidelines are possibly coming down at. So you get your
You mean
T's
the
crossed, and your
ED?
I's dotted and everything, and make sure we get the facts and the cost. Obviously, we saved a little money by
Yeah.
not doing it, but in the long run, what's it gonna cost us? I mean, I don't want, either way, we've gotta come up with something because people weren't happy, but we are also known as a tree city. So we have those blessed little trees out there dropping those leaves everywhere, and there was a lot of leaves. But that's what I would hope you guys would do, is get the dollar figures out too. I mean, there are a lot of elderly people that did struggle with the leaves, or just didn't do anything with them. We have to find a solution this spring, one way or the other, for them.
I'm
That's-
happy we
that's-
tried something new. I mean, I am happy
Right.
that the old system wasn't good. I mean, it wasn't. It was costly, and it was almost just as inefficient. And you've been on council long enough. Every year, first pickup too early, second pickup too late. I mean, so, and maybe we can sit back down at the table with Modern. Maybe if we put the screws to them a little bit, they'll loosen up their policy. But either way, another issue that's very, very important to the residents of Hillsdale. So, and then the final item, item number 5, economic development. Just as Councilman Morrissey said before, this is an issue that affects every resident in one way or another, and it's something that's going to continue to be important to this council. And maybe when we say economic development, the streets, the homeless, the fourth firefighter, maybe they're all part of that goal of economic development, because it's a big, broad goal that when companies want to locate to a new city, they look at all those things. So the better we can make quality of life here, then the more economic opportunities that are going to be here. So any discussion on council goals? Councilman Stuchel?
Actually, I just kind of want to touch on 5 of them. I don't disagree with any of them. For goals to be workable, you need to be measurable. So I guess my first question, you talk about roads. I like to include the sidewalks, as Mr. Morrissey mentioned. but how much road are we looking to do so we can know if we were successful or not? I'm just asking questions. Second one was firefighters. That's an easy one. I don't disagree with that either, but what's the timeline when we're looking to have that new firefighter on board? So do we hit our goal? Second one on the homeless, you talked about fact finding. I think if you restrict your scope to just finding facts and trying to resolve the solution, and I'm glad to hear Chief Hepner's on there, because my question would be, how many of these homeless are residents? How many are non-residents? What's the crime rate looking like? And I think if we just get some basic fundamental facts before we try to solve the problem is what I would prefer to the scope to be, what you and city manager are working on, to find the facts.
Yeah.
Just don't try to solve it. What are the facts? The fourth thing on the leaf collection, yeah, we definitely need to figure out where we do that. And as far as the economic development, I think what this council needs to do is get fully behind what TIF is doing with the Kiefer and the Dawn and make sure we're all on board, because we're going to be dropping $10-some million in this downtown here pretty quick. So whatever those issues are that we are pulling on the same rope in the same direction with TIF on these two major projects, that's going to change the trajectory of downtown very quickly. Talk about economic development. That's huge.
Well, as far as your question as to the timeline, these are 2020 goals. So these are
Yeah.
yearly goals. We want to see these achieved or progress
Right,
made
I got
on
that.
them by the end of the year.
Okay, so that's
So-
fair, but how much roads and how much sidewalk are we going to get done? I mean,
Well-
2 miles, 1 mile, 50 miles? I mean, that's what I'm looking for, is to know if we were successful or not.
Well, we did 11 last year, which was tremendous. We won't
I'm not
have
asking
11
to
this
answer it.
year.
I'm just saying, I think that's what we need to come back to, so we know if we were successful. What are the measurables? I don't disagree with the goals, but what are the measurables?
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
And some of this will come out during the budget discussions as we dig into it.
Right.
Because we'll be looking at the road and sidewalk projects for the upcoming year. Excuse me.
Fireman.
The firemen, yep, would be, and just to remind everyone, our budget starts July 1, goes to June 30th of next year. So that, when we say 2020, that's what we're looking at, is that timeframe, July through June. And leaf collection definitely is something that we need to continue to look at. I guess if you look at it from a standpoint of were the residents happy, most of them were not, that was a fail. If you look at it from the standpoint of, did we save money? Yeah, we surely did. So we have to look at both sides of that coin and figure out what's better for everyone, that we can live with. Like the mayor said, the old way was completely inefficient with the way we were doing things. The new way just isn't working. So, we'll continue to work on that issue with the Public Service Committee.
Any more discussion? Councilman Zeiser.
Just a point of curiosity with regards to the leaves, and I guess maybe this one is for the city manager or even for Jay Campbell. Do we have any data yet, or do they not furnish us with data as to how many leaves or what volume of leaves we collected with modern this year versus the last year of the old system?
I have not seen any data on that, but that's something we can inquire about to see if it was kept.
Yeah, because we're kind of operating under the hypothesis that fewer leaves were picked up, which I think might bear out, but it would be good, I think, in that meeting to discuss that.
Any more?
So you want to measure a dump truck to a leaf bag? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, there's got to be some measurable quantity. I don't know if
I
it's
mean, the year
tonnage
before it was
or-
dump trucks and front end loaders, they picked them up and took them
Yeah,
out.
but there's an end, they weigh these things, there's tonnage. I mean, I don't know, there must be some metrical way to,
Or just truckloads.
or just truckloads, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not apples to apples. 'cause
Right.
We're
there's
going to
the
measure
bags and
compost
all,
piles
but-
too, so get it
Right,
all.
there's got to be some sort of data somewhere.
Right.
Whether it's, scientifically accurate, I don't know, but,
We'll see what we can get for
great,
our meeting.
okay.
Not picking any, Bill.
I know, but it's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
different system, so it might not translate the same.
We all on the same page, guys, or any more questions, comments?
I think those are good goals.
Solid
Achievable,
goals?
too. They're solid and they can be achieved.
Very good. All right, well, I would like at least a voice vote to put these into place. You don't need to do a roll call, but I'll put a motion on the floor to accept these as our 2020 goals. Motion on the floor by myself, seconded by Councilman Morrissey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Thank you. Thank you, council.
Mr. Mayor, can we have these made up somehow and just, I mean, they don't have to be, sent to the paper, but posted in our packets?
Yep. they'll
Even
be-
if they're just the bare, headlines.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that until we were, they'll be in the next packet, but I didn't want to do that until we had a discussion, and I felt like we were all
Thank you.
feeling comfortable with what we were talking about, so.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move into new business. Item A, Hillsdale Municipal Airport Fuel Facility relocation and expansion. I see Ginger's here tonight. Ginger, you want to present this to council?
Well, good evening, Mayor, council members, and city manager. I'm just here to discuss the bids that we received for our fuel facility relocation and expansion. We put out to bid about December 10th for our fuel farm project, and we only got 2 bids for that. Both these bids came in relatively high compared to what we had estimated it was going to cost. The lowest bid came in at $591,000, just slightly over that. And that is Oscar Larson. And it's my recommendation that we award that contract to Oscar Larson. The city's price on that would be 5%, which comes to $29,558. We use our entitlement money. We have saved up from 2016 up to through 2020. We have, roughly $612,000 of entitlement money. So we have enough money to pay for it. We were just hoping that we'd be able to have some of that for a future project. But this is what it's coming in at. I guess the economic situation is quite well with the contractors, and they've raised their prices for some of these smaller projects to make it worth their while. So that's what we've got.
Any questions for Ginger? Councilman Bell?
Thanks, Ginger. So $168,000 difference from what we thought it would cost to what the lowest bid was. Is there any function of either scaling it back a little bit? I noticed the 5 and the 10 tank. Is it 5 and 10? I can't remember. Did I read it right?
Jet is 10,000, 100 low lead's 5.
Is it
We currently have a 5,000 gallon jet tank. We're getting it refueled about every month and a half.
So it seems pretty frequent.
So it's quite frequent, and if you can get bigger loads, you get a bigger break on
Okay.
fuel as well. So while we're putting in a new fuel farm, it would be wise, since we're using so much jet, and it could go up even, more. In the
Right.
past 2 years, it's just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So I think 10,000 was a good number.
Is there anything as far as the timing that we're asking these contractors, or to maybe go out again? I know the city's costs wouldn't be detrimental, obviously, to the project, but obviously those are other taxpayer dollars coming from somewhere, right?
These are from aviation taxes,
From federal and state.
federal and state, that's
Okay.
right. Now, we do have some entitlements from 2016. We have 36,174 that expires by the end of August. So if we don't use them, we don't get that.
And those were for capital improvements only.
Capital improvement plans, so we want to make sure we get that in. Right now, we're trying to get this approved for the March transfer. It goes every other month, so May would be the next one, and then you have to get everything, contracted and
Right.
everything, and you want to make sure you got it in by August, and you're getting kind of tight.
Okay.
So it'd be wise to do it sooner.
It seems like the prudent thing to do with what we have and what you just explained, obviously. But it does, the system's kind of backwards, right? Use it or lose it now. Well, we'll spend as much as whatever it costs, so. I know you couldn't run a business that way, but we're not a business. We're a
Well, and I
government,
think I
so.
gave everyone papers to show how well the fuel sales are unbelievable.
Yeah, it's great
Yeah,
news
it's-
for the airport
And I really
in the city.
say that it's the fuel truck that made the huge difference.
Yeah.
It really did. And of course, you know, business is doing well too, so that helps.
Councilman Sharp?
Yeah, business is doing so well, it rumbles over my house quite often, these jets coming in. So it's very noticeable, you see the jets parked out there all the time. I mean, spring coming up, there's gonna be a lot more coming in again. I mean, that airport is busier than it's ever been. I mean, it just keeps growing and growing, and let's get Hillsdale in the 21st century. I mean, even with our airport, we should. And I'm not saying the advantage for Hillsdale College, I'm saying for the advantage for Hillsdale County as a whole. It isn't just Hillsdale College using that airport. I mean, it's growing so fast, it's unbelievable. We got the kids out there now doing their civil aeronautics patrol stuff. I think that's a great program. The airport's going in the right direction, and you're taking it. You picked up and continue to do what you're doing, and I do support this.
Oh, thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Just to kind of answer a little bit more of Councilman Bell's question, after the bids came in, we did go back to the state, our representatives at M.Aero, our engineer, that's our consulting engineer, our aviation engineer, and this afternoon I spoke with Kristen, our new engineer, and unfortunately, it's kind of like the road projects. Right now, the prices are high given the amount of work that is out there, and
It's that Obama economy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the key thing to keep
That was a
in
joke.
mind.
What? All right.
Yeah, right. The key thing to keep in mind is our portion of this is around 29,000,
Yeah.
so a little less than 30,000 that we're putting into this project. We have in the airport capital improvement fund a little over 200,000, I believe. So we have enough for this project and our next future projects for sure. As Ginger had said, and has shown you in the fuel summary, we're doing really well with selling the fuel. We hope to capitalize on this and sell more fuel. And despite, the cost being higher than what we'd hoped, because that bothered me as well, and Ginger could tell you, I've been asking every other way of looking at this. I think this is probably our best bet to move forward and get this in the ground. Because we will lose that 36,000 come August. I know that's not a big chunk, but it all
Money on
helps.
the table. Yeah. One last question, Mr. Mayor, for me.
Go ahead.
Have we reviewed the contractor with some expertise to make sure this is not too much to bite off for the contractor? Have they done jobs like this
This
frequently?
contractor has done multiple airports, Toledo, I've got a list of them in the office. Oscar Larson, they're a well-known contractor, but they have done many fuel farms at airports, much larger than
Have we
ours.
talked to any references or anything?
I haven't talked to anybody.
Hard to get a hold of somebody who would
But-
even know what's going on.
I can always do that for
Okay.
you.
That's going to be our question on every big project from now on.
Right,
so,
I bet.
Rip-on phobia. Anyway, thank you.
Any more questions for Ginger? Councilman Briner?
I just want to state, the low bid on this is definitely who we want to go with as far as experience, I believe, over the other one. If you go to their page, they have locations, Dearborn, Toledo, Fort Wayne, Grand Rapids. Looks like they've done a lot of similar work as far as fuel farms and things like that nature. So the cost of it, everything's up as far as the cost. I'm in favor of it. Use the funds and get it in and continue to improve our airport. So.
Any more questions? Comments?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. All
Motion
right.
to approve.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Bell, seconded by Councilman Briner, to award Oscar W. Larson Company the contract for the fuel relocation project at Hillsdale Municipal Airport. May I please have a roll call vote, City Clerk?
Councilperson Morrissey?
Yes.
Sharp?
Yes.
Stuchel?
Yes.
Pratt?
Yes.
Sizer?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Bell?
Yes.
Reiner?
Yes.
And Beer? It's all approved.
Thank you, Katie. We will move into item B in new business, Land Division, 181 Uran Street. Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. So, this is a request by the real estate company who is representing Tillman Infrastructure, who is going to be putting up a new communications tower in the manufacturing park. The lot division was a plan, or part of the plans that were submitted to Planning Commission, and it would have been before you even sooner, except they had to have all of the surveying done for the land division, and of course the surveyors are all booked months in advance. So we finally received the application from Falk and Foster. We have a representative from them here today if you have any questions for them. But Planning Commission reviewed it and gave their final approval of the project and recommended it to you to approve the land division. Since it's a platted parcel, lot divisions must be approved by council. So.
Okay. Any questions for Alan? Thank you, Alan.
Sorry, I had a question. I always have a question.
That's
Sorry,
okay.
Alan, can
Questions
you,
are good.
I think you get your steps today. I need to get mine. As far as development here with the planning committee and these developers, obviously we want them here. We want them to be doing these projects. Is there any talk in after development? I know there has been some talk with other places and other businesses of helping with some street repair after the heavy lifting of, doing things in the industrial park are done, or even just frontage kind of assistance?
Not with this project, no.
Okay. Is there desire to do that ever?
It's not something that we usually request.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually sometimes if an investor would like the street improved because of their project,
Okay.
then we usually request that they help with the cost.
Okay.
But there were no such requests by the developer to improve the street, and so we didn't. That wasn't a topic that came into the discussion.
Okay. Thanks.
Councilman Veer?
And then on that, that's a 10-acre parcel that they're putting like 2.5.
I don't remember.
They would have agreed to it, and they're allowed to subdivide that up to
It's allowed. So
4 times.
it's allowed to have up to 4 divisions.
Right.
The original parcel has already been divided once, which resulted in 185 and 181 Uran. And then 181, which is the larger of those 2 parcels, is requesting to be divided again. So that would be 3 out of the 4 allowed divisions of the original parcel. So it doesn't exceed, and there still would be 1 additional division that may be allowed if it met all of the zoning size restrictions.
Any more questions for Alan?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councilman Sharp?
You ever been on Uran Street recently?
Mm-hmm.
One of those beautiful roads up there in the industrial park. It's just another cell tower going up. How tall? What was the height?
You remember, Ben?
170 feet.
170?
So we'd have one there, we'd have one by Cambria Tool,
Mm-hmm.
and then
We got the one down by Abrasive Materials.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was discussed at the planning commission meeting, and there was some legal controversy over that point. And we requested Mr. Lovinger to give us an opinion on that, which could be made available to anyone who wants it.
Yeah, in fact, it was in one of the planning commission packets, so.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
that was discussed, and we'll see what litigation may or may not arise from that issue, but at any rate, it was discussed at the meeting. We did address it.
Just to be clear, the legal opinion had to do with the interpretation of certain language having to do with fall distances
Okay.
from boundaries of the
I see
property.
there's a trailer park
Not-
nearby.
Well, it didn't have so much to do with the trailer park. It had to do with the zoning ordinance had certain language which the opponent of this project was interpreting in a way that was very self-serving to them, but contrary to the settled way of interpreting ambiguous statutes. They were claiming it wasn't ambiguous. Everyone else who read it said that it was, and then followed
certainly
appropriate
appreciated your help on
interpretation.
that.
Now, the opinion had nothing to do with its proximity to another tower.
Well, it's just,
It-
that's the
it-
only thing I
it-
was noticing, thinking there's one tower here and we're gonna have another one there. But other than that, I don't see any problems with it.
All right, any more questions for Alan? All right, I think we're good, Alan. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Any council discussion? Entertain a motion to approve the split with no condition.
So moved.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Veer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, so there's no miscellaneous, well, there is miscellaneous reports. We've got no proclamations. We got one appointment, Amber Yoder to the Election Commission. You guys all know, Amber's spent years on the Planning Commission. She's been a really big asset to the city. She's no longer on the Planning Commission, and now she's volunteering her services to the Election Commission, so. Anybody have any questions about that?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Bell, seconded by Councilman Sharp to appoint Amber Yoder to the Election Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we will move into general public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Same rules apply. 5 minutes. Please limit your comment to 5 minutes. Please limit your trips to one to the podium. Please understand, per our city council rules, there will be no direct questions answered and no correspondence between council and the person at the podium while they are at the podium. Except for this time, you can speak on anything your heart so desires. The podium's now open.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Rose. I'm from Community Action Agency. I'm the housing specialist that spoke with Mayor a couple days ago. So we have a continuum of care meeting the last Thursday of every month where most of the agencies in town get together and socially advocate for the homeless. We would love for you guys to join us. If you're interested, I would send out an email. I'm the vice chair of that right now. We just talk about what's going on. A lot of statistics are brought up at that meeting. I think it would be good for you guys to attend. Second, we have some funding from the government right now. The problem is we don't have low-income housing, unfortunately. We have clients we have funds all set aside for them, and they've been looking for housing for months. They have the money, we just can't find them something. I think Jess wanted to come up next and say something. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you for coming out tonight.
Hi. I'm Jessica Harrison, and I'm a housing advocate at Community Action Agency. So as you guys were talking, you guys talked about looking to other communities for, solutions. So the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness, they put out a an article, and it talked about how Lansing Police is deploying a full-time social worker. And she had quoted, when it comes down to it, we have people being arrested for issues that stem from homelessness, substance abuse, and mental health issues. We know that just arresting people and putting them in jail doesn't solve the problem. That's something that throughout the trainings that I've gone to over the last year of being in this position in Hillsdale County, a lot of the trainings are very specifically directed at the fact that homelessness isn't going to be solved by incarceration, by fixing a drug problem, by fixing, giving them more jobs or giving more DHHS assistance. It's the fact of giving them homes, like giving them somewhere to sleep. And that removing the chaos of homelessness itself then resolves a lot of those issues of substance use. And they don't need to be out in the community stealing or, causing problems with other tenants or other residents of the area. I think that there's a lot of stigma around this, and I did send some other some statistics that are out there. The Spark report has a lot of information, and I wanted to read this as well. We talked about how you can help. So this is different ways that you can help. Just being respectful to individuals experiencing homelessness in your community. Treating all members of our community with dignity and respect can go a long way in breaking down stereotypes and stigmas associated with homelessness. If you see someone needing help, look them in the eye, shake their hand, treat them the way that you would want them to be treated if you were in their shoes. Volunteer and donate at your local agency and homeless service providers. While it's great to give them items or show up at the holidays, these agencies need your support year-round, and your financial contribution allows them to purchase necessary items or support clients in ways that other donations can't. Our funding that comes from HUD is very specific, and we can only use it in very specific ways. That causes some problems in Hillsdale Community Foundation. We do get grants through them, which then we're able to kind of fill some of those gaps with our unmet needs money. But that money's gone now, and I know that there's times that we get more, and I'm sure that there is more coming. But it's a lack. We need more money. Like, we could help some of these people who are on the cusp or they don't quite fit the requirements. They're not quite in a program. We could give them a security deposit and they'd be fine. Or we can help them, connect them to better services, and they'd be fine. It's a matter of finding those services. The money for them here is really difficult because we just don't have the funding in Hillsdale. That's all.
Thank you, Jesse.
Hi, my name is Penny Myers, and I'm the director of Share the Warmth of Hillsdale County. And I heard somebody say they would like to know how many of our homeless people are residents. And I'm going to tell you that 95% of them, if not 99% of them, are, if not born here, have absolutely been raised here. The mayor went to school with some of them. My husband last year went to school with some of them. And these people have names. And it's like what she said, we need to remove the stigma. I mean, I know that sometimes they're stinkers, but, a lot of them have mental health issues, and there is substance abuse. And who knows, the trauma that they've experienced as children. And we don't, even at Share the Warmth, if they misbehave, we'll call the police on them. So we try not to enable them, but we need to remember that they are citizens of our city. And they are reaching out. They want to be loved. They want to be cared for. And the majority of this city has been behind us. It is overwhelming, the compassion that they have. They bring us stuff. They bring us food. We feed them breakfast and dinner every day. We've been open since November 1st. They get a breakfast and they get a dinner. We have purchased boots for them. We have given them coats. We try to encourage them to behave. And it is housing. A lot of them, they're on the list for housing, but there's nothing available for them. So, they are here, and they are citizens of our community and our county and our city, and it's our responsibility to take care of them. So, you know, they're here, they're residents. If I get phone calls for transients, I tell them no. So we try very hard not to take transients. We're doing all that we can to take care of our own people. So they're here and they're from here. So they need our help.
Thank you, Penny.
Good evening. I'm Renee. I'm the director of the Veteran Affairs Office here in Hillsdale. I also work at Community Action Agency with the Homeless Veteran Program, and yes, there is a population of homelessness here in Hillsdale County, specifically out where the fire was on the backside of Bob E's. There's quite a few. As agencies, we do work closely together with try to resolve the homelessness in the area. Again, as my coworker said, incarceration is not the answer. We are working. We train quite extensively on how to maybe just end the homelessness, but you're never going to do that. Our job here as other community members is to just help maybe facilitate them, to steer them in the right direction. We obviously are here because of the committee that you would like to facilitate, and it's phenomenal. There's just a lot of other positive ways that we can focus the homeless other than the negative stigma that they have, and we just wanted to let everyone here know as well that if there's any situation like that, please let any one of us know. We do go out in the field to talk with these homeless people. Last week there was a point in time count where we physically go to homeless areas, or we think that there's homelessness, to meet with these people to see if they want the help. There are quite a few of them that really don't. They know that they're in that situation. They do not want help. So we try to do everything we can to steer them toward, our direction to get them the help they need. So it is a good program. We're trying to work to end that in this area, and hopefully with the help of everyone here and the police and fire, we can eradicate it all together. So, okay.
Thank you, Renee.
Dennis Wayne Scott, 34 Garden Street. As minister for the Universal Celtic Ministries here in town, we strive to help some of the people that are underprivileged to be able to go from hospitals to doctor's appointments to different things. And when we run into a lot of the homeless too. And when we do this, these are people, and as the scripture says, when you've done it unto the least of these, you've done it unto me. Many of us haven't ever been to the point where we've had to think about what it'd be like to be homeless. But, thank God he didn't let you have to be there, but there's purpose for each and every one of them. Not every one of you that's sitting here have a purpose in life, and whatever that purpose is, it's whatever God decided for you to do. And these homeless, they have a purpose as well. Even as Jesus said, when he was being anointed with the oil, he said, well, we could sell this to do this and do that. And he said, well, you'll have them with you. And in turn, we need to turn around and look at some of the people that we do have. Are they a burden to some people? Yes, they are. Have they but we've seen this in people with jobs that has incomes, that has houses, that has these places. Don't they go out and commit crimes as well and then end up going to jail and stuff? If we take the homeless and start throwing them in jail, now how much more burden is it going to be on you and I that have houses that our taxes are going to have to pay for them? And in turn, maybe those taxes could have been used for something else to help them. These are the things we need to look at, not because we sat here and we have a dry roof over our heads, we have clean clothes on our backs, and, we might smell a little bit better, okay? But we need to look at ourselves and what we are and who we are and look at what we can do for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
I eat breakfast at a restaurant here in town every morning. There's a homeless guy in there every morning. I mean, he's in there, he's clean, he eats, he belongs to a club in town so he can shower there. He spends his money that way. I just hope that whoever comes together in this committee, that maybe a homeless person should be part of that committee so you can actually really understand where they're coming from and not looking down on them and everything. I just think that's good. I was surprised when I read in the paper, it's been a couple months ago now, that there was only 2 certified homeless in Hillsdale last year. I can't believe anybody can even believe that. I mean, all you gotta do is drive around. I mean, my brother-in-law lived at the fairgrounds for years, homeless. I mean, so I know he was one. He might not have been certified, but he was one. And I can name others. It's just like up at Apple Run, up by Apple Run. They've been there forever. You read the paper, this guy gets arrested and he's homeless. I mean, he's probably not certified, but he's homeless. I think, I know Artworks is working with Tifa. And Dr. Heckenlively just passed away. He started Artworks. He's the nonprofit behind the Heritage Association of Hillsdale, Michigan. I think he was a great guy. He did a lot for the arts in the county, not just here, but in Reading and Jonesville. I don't know if he had anything in Hillsdale, truthfully, but he was a very good guy. Him and his wife both had this LLC for years. I was looking through the packet last meeting, which would have been the 20th. I see that Tifa was going to spend, I think it was $37,500 on working on the one-way streets, which was West and Union, or West and Manning. I know Manning's got a couple blocks in the Tifa district that are actually two-way. West isn't even in the Tifa district, so I don't know if they can legally spend money. It was brought up at the Tifa meeting the other day that Litchfield bought the golf course in Litchfield, but then it wasn't really in the Tifa district, so it was really violated their rules by doing that. West Street is not in the Tifa. There's one little bit, and it's the driveway coming out of the high rise. Maybe 30 feet of it is all that West Street has that touches Tifa. Also, like I said, Manning Street's only got 2 blocks. There's Berry and Waldron, and between Bacon, that's only 2 blocks they have that are actually in the Tifa district. That money, that $37,500, would do a lot to improve the houses that are in the Tifa district on Waldron and those streets. I mean, there's houses down there that need a lot of work that are in the Tifa district that need work, and that $37,500 would go a long way on those houses down there. That would probably do 5 houses in that district, which would really make that area look much, much better. Thank you. You guys are doing a heck of a job.
Thanks, Jack. Any more public comment?
Mayor, council men and ladies and folks that are here, no titles needed here. I just, for about a month, I was homeless, and Mom, we didn't have a dad, so Mom would take us to the Salvation Army. And we would live there as long as we could until we had to find somewhere else. It's amazing that I ended up working for the Salvation Army for 10 years in Kansas City, where I drove a mobile feeding wagon and fed the homeless. I mean, you do what you can because of the experience you've had. Yeah, there are a lot of issues that the homeless folks have, and most of it is financial. Some of it is just simply because you don't have that the family units, the family people in the family. You know, when Dad was gone, that was it. But I'm thankful that we have a warming center. I'm thankful for Penny. Penny knows that we'll do whatever we can to help support that group. And I certainly understand. And you know, I'm so busy with so many things, but if I was to be part of this group you're talking about, I certainly don't think it's a city problem that the city has to handle by themselves. And so maybe the churches, a group, could get more involved and not just a church, and be there. And when our chief has a problem with somebody, maybe they could call somebody up from the church, maybe to diffuse the situation, or because I know there's a lot of stress that goes with what they're all doing. But I'm just telling you, maybe I can help in that way. At least, maybe out of all the things I do, maybe that's the thing that I need to help with. But I want to say to you, councilman and woman, that I appreciate the wisdom. I pray for wisdom for you guys all the time, all of you, ladies. And you're doing a really good job, as was said. And I appreciate it. It's good to be on the airport committee. And what you did with Ginger and Scott, and how you're going to continue to build that up. But wouldn't it be great to get a group of homeless people together to start doing some projects together that would give them some worth and let them to know how important they are and give them some value. But that's all I need to say. I appreciate all you're doing to meet the needs of our homeless folks.
Thank you, Pastor. Any more public comment?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for the correction in the minutes from the joint meeting, and to the comments, screw the streets, that we heard that day. That just kind of blew me away. It still does. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Any more public comment?
Don Hernandez, 30 South Main. It's great to be here. You know, we have 7, 8 professionals in the back. They've been working on this probably half their lives, you know, doing this. This problem is just way too big for just a small little town like ours. I mean, you and I have gone at, you know, the warming center, which is a great thing. I mean, a lot of these people might even be dead. We give them meals every day. We give them free clinic as far as on Tuesdays at the Episcopal, I believe it's the Episcopal Church. You know, and we have a bunch of people right here who are just very interested in having this. But the fact of it is though that as a middle-class person, I pay the bills. And I understand when it starts costing money, you know, my needs are just as great as their needs, but maybe in a different way. But we've already heard rumbles about, you know, the leaves being stuck in drains, which basements are starting to fill up. You know, I can just see the scenario 3 months from now, you know, where the city's facing, you know, lawsuits because of leaves being, you know, the act of God and this happening. There's a lady across the street right now that's working her butt off in a store that she's just opened. This afternoon, I went down to the Hunt Club. He's sitting out there washing his windows. Blossom Shop moved $2 down to a bigger and better place. I mean, you know, and what do? Of course, I step in a big mush full of leaves. It's the thing with the leaves. I think that the city had cleaned the streets, you know, or had been able to have them a place to put them, to take them, so that we weren't stuck to these 2 Saturday mornings. That's something that I think you can negotiate with the waste people, so that we would have, you know. Then I think a lot of people just might have been busy on those 2 Saturdays. But the thing with the city, this is all going into our infrastructure, which is, you know, who knows what's underneath? Well, Jake knows. He knows that a lot of times it's a Band-Aid thing. And it's just a matter of time before, you know, we start seeing the floods and the street, and everything just caves in. We definitely need to get them off the streets. Luckily, it's been well where, you know, we don't have some 16-year-old kid sliding through, you know, Bacon Street, hit somebody, you know, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But that's something that could very well happen when spring rolls around. So it's just something that, you know, it's when we, back to the homeless, I don't really understand how much more we can do. We still have them. The last thing that I mean, it would really freak me out if you know, the fire guys had gone out there to a building that should not have been there, that I'm going to probably have to pay for to have a fire, not me particular, but as a middle-class citizen, is going to have to pay for. And, you know, to have them go out, and because there's homeless. I don't know what more we can do. It's like, and I don't really know if any of you do either. I mean, like I said, these people have worked on it for years and years. They've devoted their life to it. You know, all I can do is bless every night that I'm good. None of my family is homeless. We've never been homeless. And it's something that we should all be proud that we're even talking this much about. But thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any more public comment?
Hi, my name's Carla Malone. I'm not city, I'm county. Unfortunately, I've been homeless. I've been homeless from domestic assault, domestic violence, fought hard to keep my independence. It's nobody's responsibility, in my humble opinion, to take care of another human being. It's their responsibility. These people, from what I experienced, running from county to county for my own life from abusers and drug addicts that choose to extort others. They get food stamps, they go to the homeless shelters, they get all this free food, they get everything, they put nothing back. So before you buy into the, oh, they are just homeless and we have to help them, we have to give them more. They're already getting state aid, they're already getting food stamps, they're just being takers. You know, people recited scripture up here saying, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that. Well, you teach a man to fish, they fish. If you give them fish, they eat the fish and do nothing. So I live outside of town where they're stacking up 4 or 5 RVs deep. 10, 12 people, undocumented. I don't know who these people are. They're out there probably making meth. They don't do nothing but get up 10, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, migrate into town. What they're doing, I don't know. I would suggest you get your health department involved. See why these people are just migrating around doing nothing. Why are they getting state aid? Why are they're mostly young people from what I encounter. And they are public safety. Mine, yours, the community, and if you continue to give to them, you're going to bring more. They're not going to leave. They're not going to do nothing. Like they said, they don't want to work. They don't want jobs. They don't want nothing but free food and give me more. That's my 2 cents, and have a good day.
Thank you, Carla. Any more public comment? Seeing none, we will close the podium and we'll move into city manager's report. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of things. I'll keep it brief. A couple of items I wanted to point out. For those with winter taxes coming up, they are due on February 14th, so Valentine's Day. Your taxes are due without any interest, without any interest or penalty, but that is the date that they're the deadline.
Can we keep it open late so people could make a date of it, maybe? Like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., you know?
We can ask Peter.
Go pay the taxes with your spouse?
Yes, maybe.
I see an idea.
Not that that's, that's just...
I'm just kidding. Don't keep it open.
Giving the public the date and reminding them, because some people do forget.
Yeah.
On February 15th, those who rent dock slips at the lake, they do have to have to maintain their current or previous spots, do have to have those on file and half of the amount paid on February 15th for this coming summer. Board of Review has their taxpayer appeals on March 9th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Tuesday, March 10th from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. to give those folks who work an opportunity to come and appeal if there's appeals that need to be made out there. One thing I wanted to point out, and we have them over on the sign-up or sign-in stand, is a flyer with tear-offs at the bottom for A Few Good Men. As many of you know, they do a lot of things around the community to help. And if you know of anyone who could use help with snow shoveling, lawn mowing, brush removal, leaf removal, gutter cleaning, exterior cleaning, heavy lifting, wood splitting, tree removals, these young men will come help. They have, like I said, little tear-off tabs. So if you know anyone, please give them a number. And they are looking for jobs for their service organization. And I know many of you know more about them than I do, but I've heard nothing but good things about their work in the community. Lastly, I just want to thank everyone who has came here tonight to talk about the homeless issue, because it is a huge issue, not only locally, for both sides. Those who help and those who feel they get enough free stuff. And the mayor and council, and the mayor for bringing this up. It is a huge issue that we're seeing nationally. And talking about it, educating the public, and learning how we can help or correct. I mean, there's probably opportunity on both sides. So I just want to thank everyone who came here today to talk about it, because until you know someone and you dive into it, I've never been homeless, like some have said. They haven't, so I don't know what that truly means. But if someone could educate us, I think that would be great, and we can learn and educate the public. Because I will tell you this, I've been asking other city managers about this, and some of them have issues, but I literally asked one from a well-known community in the state, about the same size as Hillsdale, if he had homeless. He looked at me strangely. No, we don't have any homeless people. And I thought to myself, you just don't know your community, because there's homeless people in every community. Just sometimes you choose not to see them. So with that, Mayor, I'll answer any questions. If any council have any questions, I'll be happy.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for City Manager? I think we're all good, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move into council comment. Anybody got anything interesting or anything they want to say? Councilman Sharp?
I just want to thank Councilman Morrissey for that well-written letter. Really hit the nail right on the head. I hope that opens some eyes up on these other committees. Say what they said about the streets, that's appalling. That's just ridiculous to say that. When it's the #1 issue in the city, fix these streets, and then they think they'll say that about the streets. I'm glad I wasn't at that meeting, because I would have come out of my seat.
Yeah. I think Dean just kind of
Stumbled a little bit.
Yeah, talked before he thought, because he seemed like he backtracked after that. But I mean, it's certainly not the contention of this council that we want to screw the streets. So,
Not after Ripon, no.
I would just say on that, Dean is a very thoughtful guy. He's the chair of the Economic Development Corporation, so I think it was probably just a poor choice of words.
Very poor.
Yeah.
Very poor indeed. Any more council comment? Councilman Bell? Councilman Beer?
I yield.
With all the talk on the homeless, I can't help but reflect that last year, this council had the opportunity to encourage some low-income
need to add now, as one of our goals, is to maybe see if we can do something about the homeless situation. Which part of that I would think would be to encourage some low-income housing, so. I just thought that was
Good point, Councilman Bear. Councilman Bell?
I tend to hold the opposite view. I think, in agreement with some of the comments that were made earlier, that everybody should be owed dignity and respect, and all souls are of great worth to God. And I know that we have a lot of God-fearing people in this community who help a lot, put a lot of their own income into not only obviously taxes, but into their churches, into their local service clubs and things like that in their time. So we are taking care of those who are here. More could always be done, but since these agencies and the war on poverty started under Johnson began, the problem has only gotten worse. So we need to have new solutions, not just more money, more money, more money. The unemployment rate in Michigan right now is 3.9%. With that kind of an unemployment rate, there's no reason for anybody not to have a job. I know there are reasons that go outside of just showing up for work, but as you've said, Mr. Mayor, in your line of work, it's hard to get people to show up for a certain amount of days in a row or to pass a drug test or other things. I would also just say that it's a very dangerous idea to say if we just give people a house, then all would be fixed. That's never worked anywhere. And that person who is getting the housing is making a claim on the property of the people who are paying the taxes. So it comes out to a question of claiming that this person or this group of people has a higher claim on the property of others than the people who actually own the property, whether it's a taxpayer or working mom or firefighter or a billionaire. It's important that we approach this problem not with the idea that, oh, we should just put up more housing. If you build it, they will come. And there aren't many openings, but there are a lot of low-income housing units in the city. And as we discussed during our consideration of that unit, there's a lot of challenges in those places. I've been into a lot of those apartments through church work, and there's some people who keep their places really nice and who do a good job. And just like a regular house, the next door neighbors don't take care of their yard or they let it get dilapidated, whatever. But I don't think that our solution is we just need to beg Lansing for more funding or Washington, or we just need to build some houses and then they'll be okay, or give them houses. The homeless problem has only gotten worse since we've started these government programs, and so I think it's time to think of something else, and we'll use what we can. Mr. Hernandez said that it's too big of a problem for a city like us to handle, and I think in some ways that's true. In other ways, it's encouraging families. It's being a good neighbor. It's going to church if you so choose, and putting in time there. Treat people with dignity and respect. Don't ostracize, but you can't say, that these people are more special than other people who are paying the bill. We all need to be treated equally as citizens. And the last point, and it was brought up, well, we just throw them in jail. How dare we say that? Nobody is saying just throw the homeless in jail. But if somebody breaks the law and it's an incarcerable offense, that person, regardless of their situation, should be incarcerated. So justice and fairness and even mercy require that we treat everybody the same. and that we value the property claims of those who have it and those who don't equally, instead of one over the other. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Those are all good points as well. And, I would agree with what you say about just throwing money at problems, but I'd also look back, and say that at one time this was a better funded. A lot of these people have mental illnesses. Most of them have mental illnesses, and at one time we had places for these people to go, and they weren't houses. They were sanitariums, state hospitals, and we kicked them all out of there. And they don't just dissipate and go away when you kick them out of there. So, and I know that's not a problem that we can solve here.
Yeah.
But I would, at one time Michigan had the best mental health treatment out of all the states in the United States, and somewhere along the line that changed. And I understand that the budget got slim. But if you look at some of the stuff the state's funding, some really, really silly things that maybe, just maybe there's some, I don't know, pet projects or whatever you want to call them that are being funded that maybe the money would be better spent elsewhere. But I would agree with you, you just can't throw money at things. And I mean, that's a core philosophy, I think, of this council. So, Bill, did you have something to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, with regards to the mental health situation, I'm inclined to agree that a lot of the state money would be better spent on mental health services, but it's kind of an unfair knock. The myth is that it was essentially a decision in the Reagan administration to scale back on that, and that it was a fiscal decision. Actually, it predates that. It was from the Carter administration and before, because there was the decision that to define people as mentally ill would be to cast them as other or to stigmatize them. So that was an equal part. That there was also a movement that, who are we to say what's ill and what's not. I think that experience has borne out that whether it was for fiscal reasons or destigmatization reasons or both, that there are people who are in need of certain kind of assistance. I certainly think that that's a problem that we might be able to contribute to in some small way, but it's beyond us at scale. And I kind of flinch when I hear people talking about removing stigma from a situation, because everyone is right. Everybody deserves dignity. They deserve to be treated with compassion, but certain behaviors in society are praiseworthy and blameworthy. And so stigma is just another word in this context for judgment, and we should judge certain things as negative, and we should send out signals to what we tolerate. So Matt's right. It's not that we want to criminalize the homeless, which is another phrase that you hear from sort of the activist complex, but we do criminalize certain behaviors, and if there are more compassionate ways to deal with that, well and good, but there are certain behaviors that we can't as a community or a society tolerate, because the people who do pay taxes also have a claim on these resources. The public space is a shared resource. I have the right to not be accosted in the public space, just as the homeless person has the right to be treated with dignity. There's two sides to that coin, and so we need to bear all this in mind.
Well, I'm encouraged just at the sheer amount of conversation that we've had tonight, and encouraged that, Jennifer came and Jesse came and Penny Myers is here, and I saw the Beckwiths out there and Renee, it's quite apparent that this is something that people are ready to have a different conversation about, maybe. So, Councilman Beard?
Move to adjourn.
Second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned.